Japanese bond yields rose to a record high this week, with the Prime Minister warning that financial conditions are, quote, worse than Greece. Unfortunate to the average American, most people don't have a clue what any of this means or why they should be concerned. That is why I'm here to break it down as simply as I can. So, what happened in Greece? Well, around 2009, it became prevalent that Greece was indeed in trouble. The nation accumulated a budget deficit of 15.6% and a debt to GDP level of 115%. In simpler terms, if Greece was a household that made $100,000 per year, this household was spending $115,000 per year and was also already $115,000 in debt. Hopefully you can see the problem. As investors took notice to Greece's unhealthy position, they both stopped buying bonds and began selling their existing bonds. Bonds, for simpler understanding, is a way to invest in a country's debt. Bonds pay an interest yield over the course of a set time frame. If more people want to buy these bonds, the government can sell these bonds for lower interest rates or returns. If fewer people want to buy these bonds, the government has to increase the interest rates paid out to attract investors to actually invest in them. As fewer people are willing to take a risk, the country ends up having to spend even more money via higher interest rates for the fewer investors, costing the country even more money or debt. So, as fewer and fewer people are willing to invest in Greece, the country's debt eventually spiraled out of control, resulting in a disastrous depression. The nation's GDP or productivity fell by 25%, investments dropped by 75%, and unemployment rate skyrocketed to 27.5%, actually peaking at 58% for young people. Yikes. So, why does Japanese bonds matter for Americans? Well, it just so happens that Japan is actually the number one foreign holder of U.S. debt, owning around 12.47% of the pie. The reason for this is because Japanese bond rates have historically been very low, meaning there was very little incentive to invest in Japanese debt or assets, causing many in Japan to buy American assets. As a matter of fact, Japan is also the number one foreign direct investor in America. Think ownership of factories, real estate, businesses, etc. All this to say, as rates in Japan rise due to the failure of their monetary system offering higher yields to investors, it is very likely, in my opinion, that we are going to see selling of American assets by the Japanese in a move to reinvest either in their own country or into safe havens such as gold and Bitcoin. As they sell American Treasury bonds in particular, this will cause both the value and demand of American bonds to decrease, therefore requiring America to offer higher interest rates to convince people to buy American debt. Unfortunate for us, we have a whopping $7.5 trillion of debt that needs refinanced this year, and as rates continue to go up, our interest expenses will rise accordingly. Interestingly enough, America's interest on debt expense already overtook defense spending as the second largest expense, trailed only by Social Security. In other words, our interest payments are already unsustainable and, given the current environment, are likely to continue accelerating. So, to wrap this up, let me ask you, what happens to the household I mentioned earlier in the story? For Greece, their country was thrown into utter chaos. Interesting enough, America has a higher debt to GDP ratio than Greece had, coming in at 124%, a staggeringly sharp increase from 97% just 6 years ago. Not to mention, all hopes of a balanced budget are now off the table, and the Republicans' new plan is to just simply outgrow our budget deficit, which sits at a projected 6.2% this year. In perspective, the average annual growth rate of America over the last 2 decades was 2%. So, here are your options. Remember, this is not financial advice. You can keep your head down and pretend like everything is fine in the world, keep going your own course, and bet that America is simply so great that the laws of physics don't apply to us and that we can go into infinite amounts of debt with no penalty, or you can face reality. Realize America is past the point of no return, lost most of its leverage, and start doing everything you can to accumulate real hard assets such as Bitcoin and gold, which will likely continue to appreciate as investors lose confidence in the developed Western world. Cheers.